does it mean to you? Maybe we can engage on the chat. Yeah, I'm waiting. What does diversity and inclusion mean to you guys? I'm asking about diversity and inclusion. What does it mean to you? We are discussing diversity, inclusion, and equity. I'm just curious to know. On the chat, maybe we can engage. Caroline says diversity means variety, inclusion means intentional engagement of the minority. Peter says multicultural awareness. And Beatrice, are you my host? Beatrice?
Yes, I am. Yes,
You're
I
the
am.
moderator for this session.
Sorry?
Are you the moderator for this session?
Yes, I am.
Please help me read out the chat.
Okay, fine. Grace Kinywa, she says diversity is the practice of including and involving people from a race of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientation, etc. Eric Mudomi says acknowledging the differences and closing the gaps. Esther Mushiri says having everyone on board. Yes.
All right.
So, and then Macharia says not discriminating against those we consider different.
Okay. I am loving the answers. Maybe we can take two more.
Mercy says involving everyone at the workplace. Then Faith Wamboi says inclusion of all employees despite of sex, age, color, etc.
All right. So I like the answers because sometimes when we are told to speak about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the question normally is, are we looking at creating awareness, or why exactly are we having a conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion? And I guess for this evening, we can probably go on to just discussing further as HR professionals on what we can actually do to win in the workplaces on the agenda on diversity and inclusion, and also how we can probably get the conversations going to this end. So allow me to share my screen, and we are going to have a conversation and of course a discussion. For those of you who have been in my, okay. I need to share screen. Am I able to share screen? Beatrice, can I be co-host?
Oh, okay, let me see.
Okay. So as we figure out about sharing screen, allow me to probably introduce what diversity is. And this is technically, I have a very interesting photo on diversity, but I don't know whether we shall be able to share screen.
I've made you a host.
Okay. Okay. Simple. Today, these gadgets are deciding not to cooperate. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, here we are. So we are talking about the diversity. And if you can look at this picture, you realize that there's the usual outlook on diversity and inclusion, which includes race. And I don't know what you can see. Maybe you can tell me on the chat. What can you see from that image? What can you see? From the chat, what can you see on matters diversity? There's a picture on your screen.
Gender and age.
You can see gender and age. What else can you see? Okay, there's still gender, race, age, race, different colors. Okay. All right, we are discussing the image on your screen. We see gender, we see age, we see race. All right, and so on Matters dictionary definition or workplace definition of diversity, it is the mosaic of people who bring a variety of backgrounds, styles, perspectives, values, and beliefs as assets to groups and organizations which they interact. So diversity is technically having diversity, or rather difference in perspectives, differences in opinions, differences in many different things, style. I mean, you can see there's a guy in a cape, there's another person with straight hair, another person with curly hair, one person is laughing, the other one is very serious, the other one looks like extroverted, one looks like they're deep in thought. All these things bring about diversity in our workplaces. And as we have this conversation, think about your workplaces as we continue to think, to discuss, because what you hear today, you also need to make sure that you pick something that you can actually apply in your workplaces. So as we continue with this conversation, try and pick out what you're talking about and the linkages, either with your friends, with your families, or with your workplaces. So yeah, so on Matters diversity, I think it's the differences and appreciating the differences in backgrounds, in styles, in color, in values, in beliefs, and all that. Okay. So in our workplaces, we encounter different diverse areas in our everyday to-day life. So we have the race and ethnicity, and I think this has been the most common for a lot of places. I think this was among the first conversations around diversity and inclusion. I think because it originated from wanting to be included in terms of race, and then our ethnicity. So in Kenya, the government calls it the face of Kenya. The face of Kenya means that you cannot have the same tribe in the same place. So for example, if you're running a HR office, you need to have representation from all tribes. That they call it the face of Kenya. We also have the affirmative, or rather, that is on ethnicity. So you want all the 47 tribes in Kenya, we are urged by the government as an affirmative action to make sure that there is the representation from each sector. So I mean, each ethnic background.
Yeah, sorry, I came at the wrong moment.
We can, okay. Somebody needs to mute
in
themselves.
the hall, in the chapel, yeah.
Yes, madam, you picked your phone. Who is this?
Yeah, then I realized I needed to get some change from Faith. I needed to have started a webinar.
Nancy,
There's a webinar I needed to attend that will earn me some points. So I needed to start to get it started, and then I leave it running. But
okay. So Beatrice, you need to tell Nancy that we can hear that she's running away. Right, sorry about that. And right, so on matters ethnicity and race, I think that is normally very common. It's become a thing right now. We have gender representation. Of course, in Kenya, we have the whole idea on 70 or rather the 70-30 rule, where at least you must make sure that women are represented in every organization to a percentage. So that is on affirmative action. So on gender, I think this is also part of where we are becoming intentional about it. On matters gender, how many people, for example, in your HR office, how many women do you have or how many men do you have? You know, HR in statistics, and these are statistics, of course, from IHRM as well, 65% of HR practitioners are women. So if women are more, what are you doing in your offices to make sure that the next person you hire is actually male or vice versa? So gender representation, I think this one has also been done. We are getting somewhere in terms of women, but then we have this question, if 65%, and we were having this conversation a week ago, if 65% of HR professionals are women, and then 20% are in leadership, all the others are in the middle management, rarely do you find them on the top of the tire. And my question to you is, what are you going to do to make sure that you also have women who are represented in your boards, who are represented in your EXCO meetings? And then we have color discrimination. Of course, this is whether you're Black, you're white, and all that. I think that one is also self-explanatory. And then my favorite one is pay disparity. This is the part where you have, in fact, we have, I met a client yesterday who was telling me that one of his biggest problem is the people who were running the organization before had put the supervisor to be earning 3 times more than the person next to them. And you're like, the difference between the haves and have-nots will not be closed if that is how we are paying our people. So pay disparity is a main thorny area on matters diversity. And if you realize people and money, there's a lot of fight. There is normally a very serious conversation goes on when it comes to payment. So we need to have pay structures in the workplaces so that we can also help drive this agenda of diversity and inclusion in the workplaces. And then we also have the age division. Right now, we have the young and the olds. There's this thing of millennials, Gen Zs, and all that, you know. There's actually, we just, you know, that is like, I've seen people who their policies say that they cannot promote a person to the CEO level if they are below the age of 35. Or there are so many things that are happening in terms of age, like you discriminate somebody because they're young and you don't even check the skill, but just the fact that they're 25, you're not working with 25-year-olds. That's a diversity issue. So age division is also one of the ways of diversity in the workplaces. And then we have transgender minorities. Of course, we all know the debate for LGBTQ. And yeah, that has been going on. And then we have disability diversity. This is normally, and disability comes in 2 forms, the visible disability and the invisible disability. I remember the other day we were supporting somebody do their interviews, and somebody came with a card from the National Disability Council. And everyone was like, the person who went to receive them, they look at them and then they came back and they were like, they have brought the card for National Council of Disability, but we cannot see the disability. You know, and it became a whole, oh my God, could he have highlighted, But unfortunately, this gentleman had an eye, and his right eye was blind. but you couldn't tell because it looked open. It looks like he can see, but he cannot. It's actually not moving. So you need to be very careful when you're looking at invisible disabilities. Now we also have the invisible disabilities in mental illnesses as well. Some of these things you cannot see. There are some mental illnesses that you're not able to see, and therefore those ones as well, they become a challenge in workplaces. And also now the visible disabilities that we actually see. All these are types of diversity in the workplaces. And of course, then we have age disparity, where everyone who works for us is below 25 and we are okay. Or the difference between the young people are the ones in technical, everyone else is old in management. You know, that disparity is also a type of diversity. There are so many in the workplaces, but these are the most common ones, and the ones that we interact with every other day, and the ones that we actually are able to do something about it, even as we run the disability and the diversity and inclusion agenda. Now, when we talk about diversity, I talked about the things you can see and those that you cannot see. Now, you all know about the iceberg. The iceberg has the what you can see, the top, which is normally what everyone sees. And if you remember the story of the Titanic, it was not sunk because of what could be seen. It was actually because of what was under, which is normally deeper than what you can actually see, like the way I've talked about visible disabilities. So in the diversity iceberg, we have race, gender, age, and language. These are normal things that we see. These are accepted. In fact, we have accepted them in our workplaces. But when it comes to the below the water, we have the physical ability. I was told, okay, yesterday we were having a conversation about the different body types. And we were being taught that there are people who are very strong on the upper body and very weak on the lower body. And there are people who are very weak on the lower body and very strong on the upper body. And you're like, okay, so what does that mean? And when I started thinking about it, I ran a carpentry school. So in carpentry, you realize there's some people who are very good with their hands, and there are some people who it takes a bit longer for them to be able to hold a hammer or plane a piece of timber or something like that. So the physical ability of a person is also just hidden on matters diversity. We have religion. We have people who don't accept, who will not hire or discriminate because of a specific religion. And then religion includes things like atheist, being an atheist. And I am sensitive nowadays because I got myself in trouble at some point, and I forgot to be inclusive on matters prayer. And then somebody said, wait a minute, Grace, why do you actually think that all of us believe in God or in Allah? And I was like, oh, okay, there's something like that. And yeah, some of these things don't come very easily. But then it hit me that, yeah, there are some people who actually believe in God. There are people, or rather Christian God. There we have Muslims, then we have Hindus. These are the common ones. But how about the atheists? How about the Shakahola people? I mean, all these people are there. And then we have nationality, which is straightforward. We have skills. Now, this is my favorite part because skills come again. We cover skills when we are discussing equity, because equity means that okay, we'll get to equity, but skills comes in there. Then we have diverse education backgrounds. So like, for example, yesterday during our webinar, somebody said that he sits in management, but everyone else in that management has a degree and he has a diploma and he feels very out of place. So what are we doing as the fellow managers to make sure this person is able to also feel like they belong to this management team? So imagine being feeling out of place just because you don't have the requisite, or rather you're not like everyone else. So he actually normally feels out of place. And at this point, I think those are some of the things that we do subconsciously. We have unconscious biases that we never think about it. You talk and crack jokes about some things and you don't realize that they are creating more cracks in matters diversity and inclusion. And then we have a background, we have social class, we have values, sexual orientation, we have personalities, different personalities in the workplaces. You get people who say, I'm introverted. You get others who say, I'm extroverted. You get others who say, Sina maoni. I don't know where I belong. I don't know whether I'm introverted or extroverted. All these people are in our workplaces, and we actually need to make sure that we are considerate of all of them. I remember somebody, I remember the other day we were having a discussion, and somebody was saying that we needed to, oh God, I've lost my thought process. What was I talking about? Personalities, that people who are extroverted get leadership positions because they're able to express themselves. And the other person was saying that there's a general belief that very good salespeople are extroverted. I personally, this is my personal opinion, I do not think so. I think that everyone is gifted in their ways. And I think that if you ask me, introverts actually make better salespeople than extroverts because they build lasting relationships. And this is my personal opinion, not that I have read in books or anything. But you can also test their theory and have a look at the extroverts. They're very good at opening sales. Introverts, they're very good at retaining the client. So if you are sold for by an introvert, there's a chance of coming back. If you're sold for by an extrovert, they touch and go. So there's need for balance. So, and then beliefs, and there's cultural, and I've seen organizations nowadays are very, very open. I saw the other day, there are people who are having a cultural day, and people just wore African. We had different African outfits. They wore the Baganda dresses, they were wearing the Ethiopian dresses, others were doing Kenyan, others were doing Nigerian. Like they would just on that particular day, they just decided to celebrate different cultures. These are the invisible things that we must be intentional about. We are winning on the race, we are winning on the gender, we are winning on the age, we are winning on the language, but we need to now look below the iceberg on matters diversity. And I hope we are still together. If we are still together, please type YY. Please type YY if you're still together. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So I asked what comes to your mind when you hear inclusion. I think we got a bit of that. So allow me to also jump in and just tell you what it is. It is an environment in which all individuals are treated fairly and respectively, have equal access to opportunities and resources, and can contribute fully to the organization's success. Okay? Inclusion means bringing everyone together. It means being everything that we have discussed. It means looking into it. It means going an extra mile. It means being intentional about the environment that you've created, about your culture, about the organization and how you do your things, about your policies, so that everyone becomes part of the organizations and everyone has equal opportunities. Yeah. Now, I do not want to discuss the equal part because the equal comes only in the definition of inclusion, because we have now then moved to equity. We are no longer saying equality. Equality is sort of flawed, but we're doing equity. And I probably will spend a bit of more time on the equity. So when you're in organizations, you need to make sure that this diversity iceberg, how you become inclusive or how you start becoming inclusive, is being aware and dealing with your unconscious biases and dealing with your own culture and looking at what you have normalized, and then being intentional about changing that so that you can create a sense of belonging for your people. Yeah, because the whole essence of diversity, inclusion, and equity agenda is to create a sense of belonging. And like Jenny Mutisia says, if you're going for meetings, if you're calling for meetings and you're leaving out one person, if you have this lunch and you're leaving out this one person because they don't speak better English, that That, my friends, is not being inclusive. That is being discriminatory. Yeah. So the sense of belonging you create is in the smallest of things. Yeah. So it is making sure that everybody has a sense of belonging in your organizations. So when it comes to inclusion, then you make sure that you all individual, okay, you've created an environment where individuals are treated fairly and respectfully. There's equal access to opportunities and resources, and can create fully so that everyone is able to contribute their skills, or rather they be able to contribute to the achievement of the organization goals. So as you forge towards diversity inclusion, make sure that you look at your policies, make sure that you look at your processes, because surprisingly or interestingly enough, we all have policies that have a diversity and inclusion agenda somewhere in there. However, our other implementation, or rather how we carry out things, it does not really depict what is in the policy. In fact, we remember policy on discrimination every time that we are sued or we are dealing with, we want to let somebody go, is when we remember that our policy says 1, 2, 3. But in terms of walking the talk and every day demonstrating that we are inclusive and just rallying everyone towards the diversity, inclusion, and equity agenda, then we do not have that. Yeah. So we need to be very, very intentional. Now, when it comes to equity and equality, equality is the assumption that everyone benefits from the same supports. Yeah, this is equal treatment. And if you can look at the image, yeah, you see the person on the wheelchair. They were given the equal resources. Yeah, everyone has that one step. Everyone has that one box, right? And it is assumed that everyone is given the support, because I mean, we are pushing for equality, so everyone gets whatever it is that everyone else gets. Yeah. Even when you're raising your children, you decide that you're going to bring all your children the same gifts because they are your children and you want to treat them equally. However, we do not want, that means that you're not going to meet every person's needs, or rather you're not going to be as inclusive as you thought you were being. So then that has brought about the discussion around equity. So equity there, then it is now providing the support that is needed for success. So you realize on the image that fine, the taller person is able to see the field, so he has no step. The next person has 2 steps so that they can be able to see. And the person on the wheelchair has been given a ramp so they're able to see the field properly. This is also equity. And this is progress, you know. We have moved from equality, we are now equity, and I'll show you where we are at this point in 2023. Now, more in equity and equality. When you have equality, you have person on the wheelchair. Everyone has been given the same size of the bike. Yeah, if you can see on the screen. However, that is not equality, because if these people are to compete, who will be number one? If you can tell me, are they going to compete equally? Is it a fair chance for competition, or is it a fair chance to win? And you can tell me on the chat, is it fair? Yeah. Tell me, is it fair? Can they win? That is true. So when it comes to equality, the person on the wheelchair is not given the opportunity, because all of them have been given the same bike. So she's seated here and wondering, okay, so what am I supposed to do with this bike? How do you even get up there? You know, all these things. But when it comes to equity, they have been given a bike that is commensurate to whatever it is that their body could allow. The gentleman is been given a bigger one. They are no longer bending, as you can see in the first image. And then the lady has been given a comfortable bike, and the child has been given a comfortable bike. This is what we are talking about when you talk about equity. It is not equality, it is equity. That everyone is given an opportunity depending on what their needs are. The support given, it is dependent on who they are, what they need, and the tools that they need to actually succeed. It is not the same as doing what equality you would do. And I hope this is very clear. So, and like I said, as you listen to me tonight, to this evening, you need to figure out, okay, fine, this is what it looks. what is happening in my workplace? What is happening where I work? And is there something I can do about it? Yeah. So that if you have been pushing for equality, you can now change and start pushing for equity, because we're evolving. I believe we are all learning. So if you are creating equal opportunities, then you need to check, okay, so equal opportunities, but how equal is equal? Yeah. And how beneficial is this? And you can see some things, yeah. For example, there are people who don't take milk. Completely, they don't take milk. But because the HR manager likes milk, everyone just gets tea with milk, and that is all the provision there is. If you do not want that, then you bring your own hot chocolate, and even the tea person will not boil for you your tea. Now, equality means that you bring that Nescafe machine that can give hot chocolate, that can give without milk or with milk, that can give with sugar or without sugar, that has all these options, yeah? Because you're pushing for the DEI agenda. So you are intentional about equity. So I hope that you can be challenged in your organizations to make sure that even in the smallest of ways, because as HR professionals, we need to make sure that it is not the big things that management is not supporting. There are things that we can do in our own spaces that can help us push for the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. All right. So we are saying equality is giving everyone a shoe. Equity is giving everyone a shoe that fits. So if I'm shoe number 36 and you bring me a shoe of number 40, because I mean, we want everyone is to be treated equally. That will not work for me, okay? If you have a blind person in the workplace and you give them the normal computer to use, it will not work, right? If you are having a meeting and you have somebody who has hearing impairment, you need to make sure that you have a translator with you, right? And then you have a blind person and you're always making your announcements on the notice board without even wondering or rather going an extra mile. Or even on the everyday to-day running. You have, for example, somebody who is very, very unfit. And you want everyone to run up the stairs. It's not gonna work. You can challenge them to do that, but I mean, be considerate of everyone's abilities, be considerate of everyone's skills, be considerate. You cannot put a fish on dry land and expect it will thrive or it will survive. Yeah. So you need to look at people's skills. You need to look at people's ability to deliver on work and make sure that you're giving them jobs that fit their skills. This is actually very, very important as HR professionals, because sometimes, yani, you know, this person will not deliver on sales. You know, this person is not going to do well in events planning. You know, this person is not going to thrive in a specific area. But guess what we do as HR professionals? That is the place where we want them to go. Because one, we want to test whether they can be stretched enough, or number two, we're just out of malice. We're just pushing and driving our own agenda and making sure that this person fails. So let us be considerate of people's skills. Let us be considerate of people's attitudes. Let us be considerate of people's education backgrounds. Let us be considerate of even the ability to do the work that you're giving them. If you're a short person and you're being told to always work in the stores where you're removing things from upstairs, and you're not even being given a ladder, honestly speaking, that is not going to work. So let's purpose to give people shoes that actually fit. I hope we are still together. And if you're here with us, you can type on the chat just so that you can remember. Give people a shoe that fits. Yeah. So diversity in. Can you guys hear me? I am seeing my.
Yes.
Okay. Diversity. Okay. Diversity, inclusion, and belonging is like an operating system of the organization. It actually enables the organization to have business continuity in place. You know, the way you cannot operate your computer without an operating system. It is the same as the diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Yeah. you have to make sure that you have systems in place that are supporting diversity and inclusion. You have to have intentionally, you have to make sure that every day you are living the talk and doing, walking the talk. Yeah. So belonging is when we feel a sense of belonging. It is not because we are the same as everyone else, but because we have been accepted as we are. We need to accept people for who they are, not as for who we want them to be, but for who they are. Yeah, for who they are. If we have opportunities to improve people, let us improve them. If we have an opportunity to allow them to grow, let us give them those opportunities to grow. And let's not play favorites. Let's make sure that we are giving opportunities to everyone who is available, or everyone who is able to take on the opportunities, so that they can continue, we can enhance the sense of belonging. And this in turn gives you the sense of accountability. It gives you success. It gives you more engaged employees. As you do your engagement surveys, you can be able to see whether people are belonging or people feel like they're out of place, whether they're enjoying being in your places or not. That is brought about by your diversity and inclusion initiatives. So as you embark on your policies, we agreed at the beginning, as we discussed, you're going to look at what exactly can I do differently in my workplace? How else can I make sure that we are increasing the sense of belonging with our people? All right. All right, so diversity of people and perspective, these are some of the things that you can do in your workplaces. Of people and perspectives, how then can you bring that about, yeah? Of equity in policies and practice and positions, right? If you're appointing, if you're promoting people, how are you going to do about it to make sure that there is equality? There is equity and there is inclusion, and diversity is also considered. As you recruit, are you making sure that there's an element of diversity, equity, and inclusion as you go to the market to find talent? And as you bring people in for orientation, are you alerting the people during orientation that you are very intentional about diversity, equity, and inclusion? So are your people, can we see people when we come to your organizations? Can we see diversity of people and perspectives? Or are we just seeing people and then perspectives? That's a story for another day. When we talk about equity, are your policies demonstrating equity? Are your practices every day, every day, are you giving people opportunities? And the positions that you have, are you considerate of the people's strengths? Are you considerate of their misgivings and their weaknesses and their strengths? Are you being intentional about that? And then inclusion is via power, via voice, and organization culture. Yeah. Are people allowed to speak out? Are people allowed to give ideas? Are people allowed to tell their differences? Are people allowed to solve their issues? Are people given opportunities? Yeah. So as you demonstrate diversity, equity, and inclusion in your workplaces, make sure that these three are the way they are. Actually, you can come up with a checkbox. Yeah, so people, fine, we check. Perspectives, okay, I do not know what Grace meant, but are we having difference in opinion? Are we acceptance of them? Okay, yes, we are. Tick. Equity, our policies balanced? Yes, they are. Our practices balanced? That is questionable. Our positions, you can do all these things in your workplaces to make sure that you're pushing the diversity and equity and inclusion agenda. Because remember, at the end of the day, you want successful workplaces, you want your strategic plan to be met, you want employee engagement to be very high, and you also want people who are coming to work because it's purposeful for them. We called it meaningful work. You need to make sure that the people who are coming are enjoying your work. That is what people want right now. Meaningful work. So what are you going to do about it? And some of the meaningful work, diversity, inclusion, and equity is part of one of the strategies that you can use to create a meaningful work, or make sure that people are discovering their purpose while they work and they are enjoying the places that they are working. So, right. All right. So in matters diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have a number of enablers. The first one is recognizing the differences that make each of us unique. What is so unique about you? And we can engage on the chat, and we are not too many, so we can actually get to know. What is unique about you? We can tell us on the chat, what is so unique about you? Yeah, I'm waiting for you to type on the chats. What is one thing that is unique about you?
Okay,
Great counselor.
there's one who has said great counselor.
What is unique about you? Beatrice, maybe you can tell us what is unique about you.
I can say I really empathize with people. I put myself in other people's shoes a lot. And I also smile a lot. And they're very talkative.
Okay, and I've seen there's what? I'm deeply empathetic. I smile while greeting people. Daniel Muteki, my people skills is 100%. Peggy says patience. Hi, Peggy. Lois says very social. Leila says aggressive for results. Pomolo says good in event planning, listen, but can also talk. Evian says good listener. So if you have seen in all those that, all the answers that we've been given, very few are similar. It means that every one of us is unique in their own way. And there's something that we bring on board that is uniquely us, and that is why we are who we are. So, and as we are doing, we are pushing the diversity and inclusion. And by the way, this is one of the skills for 2023. You actually since 2022, and I think it's gonna be the same for 2023. Recognizes the differences that make each of us unique is so important, and especially for HR professionals. You need to know within your team who can do what, and don't just say that this is the only person who actually works in this organization, and then you have left everyone out. You never give anyone else an opportunity. You only give instructions to one person, and those instructions, that is the only person who works in that office. Apana. Let's recognize the differences that make us unique, and also make sure that we are also intentional about recognizing other people's, yeah? Then attracting people of all backgrounds together in a respectful environment. We need to make sure that we are intentional about the people we attract, okay? So if we are in the market looking for talent, we have to be intentional about their backgrounds. We have to be intentional about their education. We have to be intentional about their ethnicity, their race. And if you're an international organization, make sure that you are bringing in the international agenda. If you're in Kenya, make sure that you're trying as much as you can to make sure that you're engraving the face of Kenya, all right? In terms of gender, are we intentional about making sure that gender parity is dealt with, yeah? In Kenya, we do not, form of, what do we call it? LGBTQ is not legal. So on matters that I am not telling you to go and do anything about it. But in case you have somebody who belongs to the LGBTQ community, what can you do as an organization? Not necessarily because of compliance, but what can you do? Because you are human first. This helps you put the H in HR first. And then we have creating an environment where everyone is appreciated and has a chance to succeed. Like if you're giving awards, make sure everyone is considered. If you're planning an event and somebody else is very good at event planning, but they belong in the workshop, make sure that you also engage them, let them feel like they're part of this, because that is part of their strengths. So you create an environment where everyone is appreciated. I've seen a question about the people who are not able to take on technology. Some of these things you need to walk the journey with them. You have to walk the journey with them, and you're like, okay, fine. This is where we are at. This is the policy in the organization. So between now and December, can we take you to school? Can you support them? Can you also give them assistants who are tech savvy, so that then You allow them to make decisions, become decision makers, lead the way you want them to lead. Teach them the basics of email writing and picking and receiving calls. But on matters typing, on matters making presentations and all that, please, you can bring in an assistant for them so that you can help them become better. By the way, it takes a bit of time. I remember my former employer, when I came in, he had refused to completely use a touch screen. And I tell you, we had to work him into it until it got to a point where, all right, he agreed. And we no longer now can get him out of the phone. So some of these things you have to be very, very intentional with. And then we have recognizing how attitudes towards differences influence our interactions with others. Yeah. Our own unconscious biases. Our own conscious biases. Where are our biases, by the way? Yeah. We need to recognize how attitudes towards differences influence our interaction. So for example, if you're a homophobic and you have a homo in your organization, how are you going to deal with yourself? Because that's an attitude you have, okay? And if you have somebody who is pregnant in the workplace and they have just reported to work, what are you going to do, right? If you have, for example, a woman who you think this one cannot be able to do this job, and it's because you have unconscious biases or you have biases as a person, what are you going to do about it, yeah? So you need to recognize that these are the biases you have and start working on them intentionally, right? You have to be intentional and deliberate about these enablers. So I hope if you're not leaving out of this training with anything else, you can understand the enablers for diversity, equity, and inclusion so that you can start working, even if it's on one. Just make sure that one is functional, and then you can continue. You can keep going on, because change is not a one-day event, yeah? So if there are things that you realize that you need to change in your workplaces, make sure that you just pick one or two and start pushing for that until at least the end of this year. I mean, we're just getting to the half-year mark. So, right, what can we do? The reality is one gets more than is needed, while the other gets less than is needed, and that's a huge disparity is created. If you can see the photo on your screen right now, there's one where we're showing reality. Yani, there's somebody who gets more. When there is promotion, is that person. When there's a trip that has a DSA or per diem, that is the person who gets. When there's a shared responsibility, that is the person who gets. When there is a what, that is the person who gets. They are always getting. Okay, fine, we admit they could be really good at what they're doing, but what are we doing for the others who are also not at that point? Yeah. What are we doing to pull them towards success? And then we have the second bit, which I talked about, equality. Yeah. This is the assumption that everyone benefits from the same support. That is also not working anymore. Then we have equity. Everyone gets support they need, which produces equity. Okay. So we have sort of balanced. When you look at equity, the photo, we have sort of balanced everyone. Then we have justice. All three. We have now removed the wall. That is now getting, that now you can say that you are getting there. You have removed the wall and everyone can watch the game as open, with their own strengths, with their own weaknesses, with their own everything. You have just removed the barrier that was making them not thrive, yeah? And that means that systemic barriers has been removed. So make sure that you look at your systems. Are your systems the barrier to inclusion, diversity, and equity, or are you the person, or is it the whole organization, your processes, your systems, your policies? What exactly is not allowing for diversity, inclusion? Let's aim to get into inclusion. Inclusion is where everyone is included. We are no longer watching from the sidelines now. Everyone is actually playing in the game. Now, if you can achieve this as an institution, then you have won, my brothers and sisters. Everyone is included in the game. No one is left on the outside. They do not only remove the barriers by keeping people out, we also made sure that people are valued and are involved. That is your goal. That is your aim. Are we still together, my good people? You can type
Yes,
YY on the chats. You can type
we are
YY.
together.
We are together.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you're able to get us to inclusion phase, if you're able to take us to the inclusion part, then we can say that we have won. but the intention is to move from reality, move from equality, move from equity, go to justice, and if from justice, then you push for inclusion, yeah? So when you have diversity of thoughts, it leads to one, a wellspring of creativity. You encourage creativity. When you encourage diversity of thoughts, that means that you help people become innovative, okay? Then when you have diversity of thoughts, you also enable, you can reduce risks, yeah, by 30%, all right? And then organizations with inclusive cultures are 2 times likely to meet or exceed their financial targets. They are 3 times as likely to be high performers. They are 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile, and they are 8 times more likely to achieve better business outcomes. These are statistics that were done, I think, by a company in the US, but I found them quite interesting because in my practice, I have seen for those who, because the cries, if you listen to the cries of employees, most of them are crying about not being involved, the sources of conflicts are actually inclusion and equity based. Just go and check your institutions. Most of the conflicts that we have are based on diversity, inclusion, and shadows now. Individual feelings of inclusion is 70%. Increases in experience of fairness, respect, value, and belonging. Psychological safety. This is where everybody psychologically feels like they belong. Now, if as HR professionals, you're looking to have engagement rating go high, make sure that the psychological contracts are also very, very engaged. Yeah, psychological safety. Make sure people are feeling safe. Make sure people are in as much as we are in the VUCA or Bunny world, make sure that people feel like they belong to your institutions. Yeah. So when you have inclusive leaders and you HR professionals, because most of you are inclusive, so you increase team performance by 17%, you increase decision-making quality by 20%, and you increase team collaboration by 29%. So allow me to request Beatrice. Beatrice?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Allow me to invite a few people to give us examples as I pick my water.
Okay.
So we can take a few examples on what people are doing as inclusivity leaders in their workplaces.
Okay, maybe me, I can say mine by including employees in critical decision making and getting their point of view. I think that is mine. So somebody else can say theirs. Anybody else with a decision with a critical factor? Okay, we've gotten from Leila, Peggy, and this one, maybe Grace will give us a way around it so that we can come up with a solution.
Yes, I asked, what are we doing as leaders to drive the diversity and inclusion agenda in our workplaces?
Okay, we've gotten some replies. Leila says, have tried this and I tell you the fight with the CEO. Then she put an emoji. Then Peggy says inclusion shouldn't be confused with passing information. Some people pass information to their staff, not necessarily for their participation. Then Leila also said you are sidelined as HR therapist, not HR. Then Caroline says from shortlisting, have a mix of age studies, gender, etc. align at interview time. Then Esther says open communication and giving feedback.
All right, you are sidelined as the human resource therapist and not HR. Wow. Okay. Inclusion should not be confused with passing information. Some people pass information to their staff, not necessarily for their participation. That's true. There's Moshene, and then there's the knowing what to say. Yeah. The fight with the CEO. It's okay. You know, sometimes Leila, sometimes what you need to do is package things differently. You don't need to go and say, by the way, we are doing this and this and this and this. Sometimes the best way you have to learn how to lobby for your ideas. You lobby for your ideas so that in as much as they may not be responsive now, they will be responsive in the future, right? Because some of these things you have to do them pole pole. Especially because you're managing change. If you take change and just say, pap, we are going to do this and that's final, my friend, it's going to backfire on you. Even you will not have energy to push for it. But when you have a buy-in, when you have everyone who is excited about it, when you're taking people slowly as they change, then you end up having transformation and not just change. And that is what you should aim for, not just changing, yeah? So thank you for participating and for also sharing what's happening in your organizations. So when you're pushing for the inclusion agenda, make sure that you understand the organization's working definition of inclusion and its vision for an inclusive culture. In your own spaces, if you're talking about inclusion, define it, because it's not one cloth fits all, yeah? Our inclusion at Atara may be very different from your inclusion at your workplaces, yeah? Make sure that you define what your inclusion means, or rather the definition of inclusion to you. Okay. And after that, make sure you take action, yeah? Align with management on the definition of your inclusion, validate management's inclusion vision, strategies, and goals, and then provide input to shape or enhance the vision or strategies and goals. Okay, so after you have come up with a definition, make sure that you agree with management, make sure that you validate, and that means that you take it on the ground, and you also make sure that it is workable in your own workspaces, yeah? And then if it is workable, then you're able to, then if it is workable in your workplaces, then you go and see how it can be used to enhance your vision, to enhance your business strategy. Then number two, whether the business strategy reflects inclusion. Number one, you've come up with a definition. Number two, confirm, does your strategy also include or demonstrate or reflect inclusion, yeah? So providing input for improvements to the business strategies to best align with their inclusion, vision, and strategies. If it is not inclusive, make sure that there's an action point there. Make sure that you see what you can change to make sure that it reflects inclusion. What the organization is doing to advance inclusion and where it is making progress. Now, this is for you. This is the homework that you're going to do. You remember, we normally say, if you attend my sessions, you know, they're very practical. I just don't like telling people, I'm not a motivational speaker per se. I will be when I'm required to be. But at this point in time, allow me to be a bit practical. So when this column for understand, it is what you're going to do, yeah, going forward. Then you check, what is the organization doing to advance inclusion and where is it making progress? Check, we were here, this is where we are at, okay? Seek to understand the organization inclusion maturity level. I'll give you the thermometer. Request information to provide guidance on addressing the gaps. So once you know where the gaps are, make sure that you come up with strategies that will help you address those gaps. And then number 4, existing enablers and barriers to an inclusive culture. Seek to understand what are the barriers, what are the enablers, okay? And then once you have identified them, stay aware of the organization enablers and barriers. You don't just identify and forget about them or put them in a file and put them somewhere to gather dust. No. Evaluate and improve approaches to promoting enablers and breaking down the barriers. So make sure that for everything that you do, you have an action point. If there are enablers, so how can we improve those? How can we get better, or how can we engrave them so that they're part of our culture? If there are barriers, how do you break down those barriers? What can you do about the initiatives that you have in your organizations to make sure that you're driving the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda? Okay. So in terms of how you can check your governance maturity on the inclusion and diversity agenda, there are different organizations and you can check where it is that you're at. Now, most organizations are on number 1 and 2, okay? The compliant organization. Are you an organization that just is pushing for diversity and agenda because the law says that we do? Okay? This one, they only seek to avoid legal risks. Nothing else. That is why they have it in their paper. They don't talk the walk. They have it as a compliance. In fact, if they are ever asked by donors, or they are ever asked by the government, or they are ever asked by the law, they have everything that checks, but it's only on paper, because the main reason they are doing it is to make sure that they are compliant. Okay. And then we have those who are at the emergent level. Yeah. They recognize the importance of DEI and believe that it is entirely the purview of management. Then they have an inclusion strategy in place, but the company has little or no influence. So they are compliant. These ones are just following the law. We are told 30% gender equality, the gender equity. So they have made sure we have 30% of women, and that's it. Whether the women are pregnant and they have to stand the whole day, that does not matter. Then you have the emergent. They have recognized, they also know that is important. They have been attending this session with grace and they understand, and then they have gone and they have prepared the document, and the management is also aware, but that is it. That is where it ends. Then you move to 3. This is maturity level number 3. The embrace, and this is the company that sees value of the inclusion governance, but may not currently govern in such a way or actively seek to do so. The company values inclusion strategy, but sees it as separate from its business strategy. So these ones are the people who have a diversity inclusion agenda, yes, but it is not ingrained in the organization strategy. It's not part of their everyday work. It is just there's a diversity. In fact, the policy document is totally separate from the HR manual. In the HR manual, there's just one paragraph on diversity inclusion, and that's it. So that is a company that is embracing. That is your maturity level. Of course, I said, as I speak, you need to check what is happening in your organization and whether there's something you can do about it. And then we have number 4, which is the collaborative. This is a company that understands the importance of inclusion governance and demonstrates ability to practice it, but may not have explicitly documented expectations on how to carry it out. The company governs the inclusion strategy as the core to the business, yeah? So this one is wamesonga mbele kidogo. The collaborative, wamesonga mbele kidogo. They understand it is in the strategic document. They understand the expectations, but there is nowhere that they can measure. It is just somewhere there. It is written down, and that's as far as it goes. Yeah. Then we have the inclusive company. This one now, this is what we are seeking to be. You remember that photo I showed you about the walls gone down and everyone is in the playing field and everyone is participating? That is where we are seeking to be. So the inclusive company, it formally embeds inclusion expectations in the company's charter, consistently governs through an inclusion lens, and regularly challenges and supports management in enhancing the organization DEI efforts and progress. The company governs the inclusion strategy as core to the strategy of the business. Now, if you can move, check, I know you have you can check your organizations, you can be able to point out, are you at compliant level? Are you at emergent level? Are you at embracing level, collaborative level, or inclusive level? So, and at this point, allow me to ask, where is your company? Where is your company today? Are you at the compliant level? Are you at emergent level? Are you embracing? Are you collaborative? And or are you inclusive? You can unmute yourself and tell us. You can unmute. Okay, Grace Kenyo says she's compliant. The company is compliant.
I can see most people are at compliant level. Compliant level 1.
Yes, so we want to now move from compliant level. None of
the above.
And that is okay, Leila. That is fine. You need to now start, because part of why we're having this conversation is so we can help you or support you or just encourage you to begin somewhere. Yeah. Even if it's in your recruitment, you know, there are things that you actually have control over as an HR professional. You don't have to necessarily get UCO. You can just decide, you know what, on compliance levels, I am going to implement compliance. And you also have to understand the industry you're in. Yeah. For example, you realize in technical fields, I've told you guys about carpentry. In carpentry, we have less women than men. And that is okay. So what we have done is made sure that the people sitting in offices, the people in management are more women than the people in the workshop, because workshop now is again full of men. So there are some things that you can check in your institution and see, does it work or does it not work? And if you have none of the above, try and be compliant. If you're at compliant level, go to emergent. If you're at emergent, go try and make sure that you're pushing to make sure that your maturity on diversity, inclusion, and equity is going up. Yeah. And even if worse comes to shove, just make sure it is somewhere in your policies. At least that is somewhere you can begin, because policy is sits with HR. Yeah. At least those are some of the changes that you can make. So ask yourself. Yeah. I'm almost finishing. Ask yourself, does my behavior contribute to work output and mission accomplishments? Okay. So this one, I am asking yourself because you tuned in here because this is something you wish to understand. So from the discussion that we have had, does your behavior contribute to the output and mission accomplishment of your specific organization or of yourself? Okay. Then could my behavior offend or hurt others? Because change begins with you. This inclusion and diversity starts with you. If you're the person who calls other people for meeting and leaves other people, it starts with you. Okay? Does your behavior offend others? That means you're not walking the talk. So we might talk here and you might say the management does not support you. You'll also say my supervisor does not support you, but are you walking the talk? So could your behavior be offending somebody or hurting others? Okay. Could my behavior be misinterpreted as intentionally harmful or harassing? Now, allow me to discuss this, because this comes to things like even body shaming. You see somebody and you're like, oh my God, you're so short. As if being short is a mistake. Okay, I'm using that because I get that a lot. It doesn't affect me, but I know people who it affects, yeah? Oh, my God.
Hello, Grace. Hi, Grace, can you hear me?
Where? Network imefanya ile kitu?
Yes, but you're back.
Yes, I'm here.
I can see some comments. Simon says, Grace, I'm short.
Aha. Uh-huh. I can't read anything. Of course, I've lost everything now. So I can't read any of the comments.
There is one person who says, Grace short in stature, but tall, very tall in impact. That one is from Helen.
Yes, I mean, so, right. So I think, could my behavior be misinterpreted? Thank you very much for that compliment, Helen. But you need to ask yourself, could my behavior be misinterpreted as intentionally harmful or harassing? Then ask yourself, could my behavior be sending out signals that invite harassing behavior? This one comes to even sexual harassment or even just flirting everywhere. Could your behavior be misinterpreted? Could it be, could people say that you have been sexually harassing them and you haven't because you're sending the wrong signals? Now, my good friends, we have talked about organizations. These 4 things are for you as a person because all the policies, but if you're not walking the talk, there's nothing you're doing. So you have to lead by example. Okay. So if you want to create a culture of diversity, inclusion, and equity, you must seek to have leadership buy-in. That is what will take you to inclusion. You remember the photos with the 5 people, justice and inclusion, that part. You need to make sure that you have leadership buy-in. Must be intentional. You have to be deliberate. I think I've talked about being deliberate and intentional the whole time. Then communicate and also create awareness. Today we are creating awareness. You need to communicate. Let people be aware. Let people know. Let people know that some comments are wrong. Let people know that the way you look at me does not work. That one is not inclusion and diversity. Judging me because I know it's not going to work. Yeah. Then it must be part of your culture. This is where you develop metrics and value proposition. If you're going to engage if you're going to engage your leadership, you make sure that you have a value proposition. Why is it important for us to have a culture of diversity, inclusion, and equity? Then you must have compassion. Extend compassion to yourself and to others, okay? And then make sure that as you embed the culture of diversity, inclusion, and equity, you create recognition. Recognize those who are participating. Rewards, all right? Reward, and then carry people along with you. Don't leave anyone behind, yeah? Then build trust. Let people know that you're in for them. Build trust, okay? Then mitigate or reduce for conflict. We may not get rid of conflict 100%, but you can definitely reduce conflicts, yeah? Some of these things are within your control, my dear friends. They are within your control. So check your temperature. Are all people valued and respected in this organization? Is the organization having a system in place to check whether people are valued and respected? Do leaders walk the talk? And this one I should have written, does HR walk the talk? Is the communication structure enable people to communicate effectively? Is there a maker-checker system in the organization? And then are the vision, mission, strategies tailored to support the core business? This is your temperature check. And this one I can only leave for you to do. Are your people valued and respected? Do you walk the talk? Do you communicate effectively? And is it, and whatever structures you have, because this is a HR function, whatever structures you have, does it enhance or enable people to communicate effectively? All right. Are the vision, mission, and tailored to make sure that they are inclusive and they encompass diversity and equity? In conclusion, I like this quote. We have to transcend our differences to transform our future. That's by Antonio. We have to transcend our differences to transform our future. You have to make sure that you're going a notch higher. Yeah. You have to get rid of your differences to make sure that you transform your future. Right? Thank you very much for listening to me. Asanteni sana. Back to you.
Wow, you're welcome. You're welcome. I've learned a lot. Now there was a question. What if some instances you are not included in the most critical decisions?
2 answers. 1, have you demonstrated your value? Have you taught people that you are so valuable that you don't go to that meeting and unaambiwa sina maoni? One, you need to demonstrate your value in your everyday so that people can say, oh my God, that meeting cannot happen if Grace is not here. That is your value. What impact are you having in that organization? So first of all, we look inwards. Are you doing everything possible to make sure that your value is actually recognized, that your value is felt, that impact, you don't even have to be in the room, but people are saying, Grace said. You don't have to be in the room, but people are saying, have you asked Grace? You don't have to be in the room, but people are like, wait, make sure that Grace comes for this meeting. That is something that you can do. Now, in organizations, there are some organizations that you have to teach them. You have to teach them to include you, and that you can only do by value proposition. So again, I go back to point number one. How are you positioning yourself as a valuable asset into that organization that decisions cannot be made without you? If it is a culture problem, what are you going to do to change the people to start appreciating the value of HR or the value of you as an admin, so that you can then be put in the table? And by the way, you don't even have to be on the table. You just make sure that your agenda is being discussed in that table, even when you're not allowed to be in that table. That means that your impact is felt, even when you're not in the room. That would be my answer for that. Back to you, Beatrice.
Okay. Yes, and there was somebody who said, but what if it was concerning the inclusion part? He said, what about if the person excluded does not want association? What do you do?
You walk the talk. Sometimes you also find out why. Beatrice, sometimes you see people, by the way, what they show you is not their actual. You have to go and ask, why is it you don't want to be part of this? And it doesn't have to be, you can actually send somebody who is close to them, they can open up to. Because sometimes you find that maybe they came and they were hurt, and now they have lost trust in the system. So you need to also reach out to them, extend that hand, yeah? Seek to understand them, seek to assure them that it's a safe space, yeah? Make sure that you extend your hand so that then they're able, first of all, understand their why before you start saying, by the way, you must come. Understand your why. And most likely it's because they were hurt at some point, or they do not see value. They think that you guys are just going to this.
Hi, Grace, we've lost you again. Hi, Grace, we lost you. I can see you're back.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it's network issues. Yeah, so I think for me, it would be always seek to understand the why, because the way people behave, it's normally because of some think that they don't belong to that place where you want them to be included.
Okay, and there's also another question from Simon Frank. In a mixture of multinationals, you have experienced issues with inclusion. What are your comments on that?
So on matters, mixture of multinationals, you have to really be intentional. That one, there's no two ways about it. You have to be very intentional in terms of even language, because sometimes you think that Kenyans are the ones who speak Luo, Kikuyu, and Kikamba and all those languages. You have not been in the place where the Danish are speaking in Danish, the French are speaking in French, and the Tanzanians are speaking in Swahili, and the Kenyans are speaking a mixture of Swahili and whatever it is they speak. Those are things that are live. So for you, it is to make sure that your policies in place are also encompassing the different backgrounds, and make sure that you are intentional about some of these things. If it is language, you can even say, so long as we're in meetings, we are not speaking in this language. Yeah. Some of these, they're small things, yes. They may look like primary school, but I'm telling you, you're just going to make sure that everyone is feeling included. Because as soon as we start speaking Swahili with you, Simon Frank, Kwanza, you're Swahili, I can't even understand. Simon Frank is from Tanzania. But you see, for me to actually feel like I belong, we have to level up at some point. So it's in our policies, it's in our day-to-day activities. It is also in how we are reaching out to these people. Yeah, that would be my comment.
Okay, I think people have taken all the comments positively. I can see there's so many comments. Asante Sana, thanks Grace. Thanks Grace, you're awesome. You're getting so much appreciation. Thank you Grace for the wonderful session. Thank you Grace. Get prepared for another session like this. We need to look for another topic. Asante Sana Grace and Atara, it was very enlightening. Then Faith says, this was powerful. Thank you, Grace. Simon says, thank you, Grace.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, let me take this opportunity to invite you all for Friday. We will be at Kempinski. Make sure you come. For those of you in Nairobi, Simon, I know that one does not apply to you, but if you can, please come to Kempinski on Friday. And of course, we are going to Sagana. Beatrice, we are going to Sagana. I hope you're part of the team going to Sagana.
I will include myself and come.
Good. Yes, please. Thank you so much for having me, and you guys have a lovely evening.
Okay, thank you so much. I think there are no more questions. Is there any questions which is pending? Anyone with a question? I guess nobody else has a question. Okay, now if there are not any other questions, maybe you can bring the meeting to a close. I was your host, Beatrice, and our speaker for the day was Grace Nzula. She's the founder and lead consultant for Atara Solutions. We always have a meeting with her on Tuesdays from 8. You can log in also on that one. So Grace, any other comments you have?
No, not really. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the comments as well.
Okay, you are welcome.
Asante.
Somebody is asking concerning the CDP. Just send what you can do. Just send your number, your number to this. You know it's being recorded, so IHRM will pick your number from here, and they will add it automatically. They'll add your CDP point. That is Neema Wangui who is asking.
Yeah, Simon, we have an event, a session this evening. We are doing the book closure, so you're welcome. So you're closing the book. What got you here will not get you there. Yeah. All right, Betty, bye-bye.
Okay, bye. I think I'll be the last one to leave. So when you put your number, you can exit.
Sawa.
Okay, thank you.
Let me make you host again.
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to leave. The session has come to an end.
Thank you, President.
Thank you. Thank you very much for attending.
Sure. You're welcome.
Okay. Sasa, bye.